Good morning. I'm Carlton Sharp, pastor of Faith Christian Center Church, right here in Beaumont, Texas. And we're here on what's happening in our neighborhood. And I want to welcome back our sheriff, Sheriff Zena Stevens. Welcome, Sheriff.
Thanks.
Hey, listen, the last time you were doing some great things. You were changing some things around with your staff and everything. So tell us, how's the progress coming along?
Well, almost 6 months in, we've made some changes. Some changes people will recognize in terms of, reallocating, manpower in different places. We have many more officers on the street patrolling the neighborhoods, and I think, people have recognized that. In a short time, we created a traffic division where those guys, we don't have to pull units from the patrol division when we have calls in neighborhoods of people speeding or people, or if we need to have people working interdiction. In 5 months, we've seized probably close to $1 million in money off of I-10,
Wow.
drug trafficking through in the community, and we can use that money that we've seized to purchase more law enforcement equipment to stop more drugs from coming to our community. So yeah, we've done a lot of good things in a short matter of time.
Now, when you make a seizure like that, what percentage of that money you get to keep?
Well, it depends. And so most of the seizures that we've made recently, we've filed with the feds. And so and the way that works is you have a choice. If you can make a federal connection, then the feds will pick up the case, and our split with them is 80-20, so we get 80%. When we file state cases, we get a little bit less, depending on how hard the district attorney has to work. And so sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes, it's 60-40. It just depends on how much work's involved in those state cases.
Wow.
So we get excited when they're federal seizures.
Yeah, well, 80-20 split, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
I think our most recent was $500,000 we got in a vehicle. It was a non-contested seizure. And what that means is when we stop the individual, and if they're drug dealers and they say, the money's not mine, I don't know how it got here, those are non-contested seizures. And so we seize the money, we send them on their way because we don't find any drugs usually in the car. And so we start seizure proceedings and we never hear from them again.
Now, it has to be good police work, in order to make those type of stops.
Oh, absolutely. It's good police work and a little bit of luck. You put people on the interstate for hours and hours on a day. They look for certain things. They get good at that, and so it's almost like fishing,
Wow.
You're out there, you're looking for people who are violating the law. It's a very sensitive, I think, art, because you have to be careful not to get caught up in racial profiling or profiling illegally, and that's important for me. And so, those guys spend a lot of time in training, looking, for information on the web on who may be coming through. We get contacted by other agencies who may have gotten intel or information that people are coming through I-10. So yeah.
Wow. Now, you've also made some changes in the jail there.
Yeah, we've made a lot of changes in the jail, and that's probably what I'm most excited about. In our correctional facility, a lot of times in sheriff's departments, people forget about the correctional facility. Those men and women are the unsung heroes who work in correctional facilities, long hours, and basically are charged with babysitting all the people who get put in our jail.
Yeah.
And so we've totally redone the kitchen. When I took over, we had a food contractor preparing the food, and I wasn't happy with the food that they were giving to our inmates. People say, why do you care about inmates? Well, not everybody in our facility is convicted criminals. People get arrested for traffic citations and other things, and so it's important to me that we do the very best we can to protect and serve even the inmates in our facility. So I fired that company, and we are running our own kitchen and preparing food, and it's a little bit better than it was before. I don't want them to be so comfortable that they don't want to leave jail.
Yeah, really.
But I do want it to be, first of all, I want to make sure that they're getting the nutrients that they need, and so we're doing that on our own, and it saved the county some money. Some other changes in the correctional facility, we've kind of changed and tweaked the schedule. When I took office, we were paying $1.4 million in overtime at the correctional facility. In 5 months, we hadn't paid, overtime out there. And so
Wow.
the cost savings going into a new budget year is, little bit more than $500,000, just in that area alone. And so we're doing some things to try to help taxpayers, but also not risking the safety of our correctional officers out there.
Wow. So I mean, just cutting the overtime saved you almost $600,000
Yes.
so far.
Yeah. And it's just about reallocating resources, managing it a little bit better, understanding and training or retraining some of the correctional officers to understand that, we don't, you may have to work a little harder if somebody calls in sick. It doesn't necessarily mean you call somebody else out.
Right. Now, and you're also working on a reentry program.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Matter of fact, I had a meeting this morning with some people in our community. I'm looking for employers to participate and I have been successful in doing that. When I talk about reentry, 80% of the individuals in our correctional facility are young African American males.
Wow.
And so crime in our community and all across the country, a lot of it is due to people not having jobs. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do in early spring, and we're trying to get developed now, is a career fair within the correctional center. I've got some people in our community who have the ability to hire.
Wow. So based upon what crime they committed, if it's a low-level crime, then there'll be a candidate,
Absolutely. What most people forget is in a correctional facility, a county correctional facility, most of the individuals there haven't been convicted of a crime. They're in transition. They may be there waiting to go to court. They may be on child support, holds or other things,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And so I think it's important, to understand a lot of those individuals are young individuals right out of high school and don't have a lot of other educational opportunities. They're not in college. They don't have trade skills. And so it doesn't mean that we can't teach them trades. And so part of what my long-term plans are to start having trade skills taught in our correctional facility or allowing some of these individuals to go out and do that. But in the interim, some of the individuals who are in our facilities are hireable right now. And so giving them the opportunity to network or meet individuals who are willing to give them a chance, I think is very important. And also getting to meet them and understand that people make mistakes. Everybody that's in the correctional facility aren't hardened criminals and aren't, in my opinion, disposable.
Right,
if we
right.
don't start doing things to, provide some type of reentry for them into our society, then they're going to be back in that jail.
Right. Now, recently, I believe it was last week, you were dealing with your budget.
Yeah.
And so tell us what good things you're doing with your budget.
Well, we made a lot of cuts to our budget. One of the things that I was trying to do is, I'm a taxpayer here, and, I think it's the responsibility of any manager to look to see where we can save money. I don't ever want my employees to have to worry about losing a job because we're not running it fiscally responsibly. And so, I made some cuts by redoing some schedules, changing schedules, reallocating personnel, both on the correction side and the law enforcement side. I think we can pay less overtime in some areas. Our food contract, we were able to cut some money. Just looking at our aviation, everything, extra that I believed, that we could live without. It's a contract negotiation year for our place, for the sheriff's office. And what we are a part of, or not me, but the people who work for me are a part of a bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
And so they're bargaining for pay increases. County employees, not just sheriff's employees, but county employees hadn't received a cost of living raise in several years. And so I hoped by me being able to trim some fat in my budget that would give the county an opportunity to give its employees, and not just the sheriff's department, but county employees in general, some type of cost of living pay increase, because insurance is going up, taxes are going up.
Yeah.
And, I think sometimes people forget that a lot of these improvements are on the backs of government employees, who are the forgotten folks sometimes. So that's what I tried to do.
So how much fat did you cut?
I was able, that's a good question. I was able to give $1 million back.
Wow.
$600,000, our overtime budget at the correctional facility was averaging $1.4 million. I cut that in half, so I gave them back a little over $600,000. close to $70,000 on the law enforcement side just in overtime. Our food contract, I think I gave them close to $200,000 back.
Wow.
So all those little things, minor equipment stuff that I thought we could live without. Also, we're doing so well in our Seize Fund account. I was able to, generally every budget year, the Commissioner's Court, the county buys police cars. I agreed to purchase half of our fleet out of our Seize funds.
Wow.
For this budget year, which is about 6 cars. So that's about a little over $300,000. So I think that's important. And again, if it provides additional funding for the court to give pay increases to county employees, then that was my real motive.
Well, now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the crime that's happening in our community. I mean, it seems like there's an onslaught of crime that's going on. So how can you, as the sheriff, help to get this thing under control?
Well, one of the things that disturbs me, certainly are the numbers. I look at the numbers too. I've talked to the chief of police at the city of Beaumont. Part of it is something that I think that has occurred over years and years, and it's a socioeconomic problem. We gotta go back to jobs and education and all those things.
Yeah,
I think that's a big issue. The other thing is I blame law enforcement, and I'm a law enforcement officer. I think that we've got to get back in the community and not on a superficial level. I think we have to begin to identify these individuals who are perpetrating some of these crimes, and the only way you're going to do that is by assimilating. That's being a part of the community, not just having feel-good programs, but actually having officers who are assigned in areas of neighborhoods, and we start identifying people. And I'm not talking about I'm opposed to words like declaring war on crime, because for me that means we're declaring war on certain neighborhoods or certain ethnic groups. And so I prefer, let's declare that we're going to catch the criminals who are committing these crimes no matter what color they are. And the only way you can do that is become parts of all communities by having more police force on the street. Start identifying. You got to get out of these police cars, and that's what I tell my officers. You got to roll those windows down. You got to stop at the store and start, developing relationships. And once you begin to develop relationships with people, I believe, first of all, they're less likely to commit some of these crimes because they know that you know who they are. And so we have to start doing some of that. And I think, a lot of it is training from a police perspective. Everybody talks about community policing. Community policing, in my opinion, is not, just having a bunch of programs. Community policing is being a part of the community, where you can go walk in the hood and they know you as the police officer, and they respect you. And they're going to I go to the hood, okay? And so I'm going to get a phone call, letting me know, who did some of this stuff. And so a lot of these younger officers, I think, and I blame it on us, we've gotten so far removed from that old style of policing, I think. And we got to get back to that. And that's what I'm trying to train some of the young officers that I'm hiring.
Now, there has been tension with the police force, nationwide and certain communities, to the point to where the mistrust is there, that they don't trust the officers to do the right thing because of the brutality that has occurred in certain neighborhoods. Is your training that you're developing centered toward that?
It absolutely is. I think that's one of the great things that I bring to the table, because I'm a police officer, but I'm also an African American police officer, and I'm a mother. And I'm a mother of a millennial, and I think that's important, because the issues that most law enforcement are encountering right now, the distrust are between the group that we identify now as millennials and law enforcement. Part of that, is on both sides of that badge, And so one of the things that I'm doing is doing a lot of training, but I'm also, looking for a different kind of person when I do my interviewing. Academic achievements are great, but we also need to be looking for people who have some skills other than that, that have the ability to communicate, who are patient, who are compassionate. I spent the last 3 years of my life before becoming sheriff at Prairie View University as the police chief, which gave me the opportunity to have a lot of conversations with a lot of African American young men, and and get some insight. And so everybody keeps, I have police officers who don't understand why groups of people don't trust them. Even if you're that good guy, they're seeing all the stuff that's happened across the country, and so they're painting all of us with the same brush. Just like many times we as African Americans are all painted with the same brush.
Exactly.
And so I think we've got to educate both sides of the badge in terms of how to communicate with each other. I think we have a generation of people. I'm hiring the same group of people who are also out here. And what I find very disheartening, Pastor, is what you find is even though this is 2017, you have communities who are still very separate.
Yeah.
And so I've hired officers who have never been around black people. So how do you expect the police, minority communities, if you don't have experiences? The other part of that is you have a generation of people, and I have one who I've done a great job raising as an intellectual who sometimes believes it's important to win on principle. And so when they get stopped on a traffic stop, the days where you can just say, I'm writing you this ticket, can I see this? If they don't believe that they've done something wrong, they're going to have a conversation with you about it.
Wow.
And so you have some of those too at your house.
Yes, I do.
And so what I've tried to educate mine and a lot of these young people that I talk to is sometimes it's not that important to win on principle, okay? Survive your traffic stop, and then come home or go home and get an attorney or ACLU, and then we'll win on principle. But if you don't make it home, then we can't win that argument. And so if you get stopped, 99% of the police officers out there are not trying to hurt you. A lot of it is, I think, lack of experience, lack of training, lack of the ability to communicate appropriately. And so you out there may get that person.
Yeah.
Do you want to risk, something escalating? Make that encounter short with the police officer when you get stopped. Have your driver's license ready, your registration, your insurance. Have all that stuff ready so, when he or she stops you, that encounter can be short.
Right.
And you can be on your way. And so, again, I'm spending time, when I go into communities and I do talks, educating them about that, but also educating my police officers about the same thing. You don't have to win an argument on principle. If you stop somebody, you can't take it personally if they tell you something that you don't like to hear. And especially if you ask them a question and they answer it and you don't like the answer, that's not against the law.
Right. Well, listen, if somebody's watching today, right now, who said, you know what, I want to become a sheriff, I want to become a law enforcement officer, how can they contact you or your department to begin that process, and what is that process? Well,
first of all, I am encouraging because we're trying to hire diverse people. We've done that. I think in all areas our numbers are up in terms of how we hire people and who we've been hiring. But they can come down to the sheriff's department, get an application, fill it out. Then they'll be given a background packet, which is, it's a very complicated document because to be a police or corrections officer, you can't have, a criminal history with any arrest, no convictions of anything, above a Class C. So if you have a Class B or A, we can't get you a license through the state of Texas. And so I encourage people, if you're young right now, be careful. Take care of your background because those are important when you're trying to get a job, not just in law enforcement, but in anything.
And I was just going to ask you that. Are you going into the schools now to inform them, hey, listen, if you want a career in law enforcement, then these are the things that you need to do and watch for? We
do that on a regular basis. We developed a group when I started, our community enrichment group. And so there are several individuals, and we're at Lamar on a regular basis. We're working with them. We're going into the high schools. Any talk that we do in front of people, especially young kids, it's about, preparing them for later years. Because we do a very intensive background where we send people out, say we get that packet, and, we go talk to your neighbors. We don't just say, everybody, call them on the phone.
Yeah, was he a good guy?
Yeah, we actually go knocking on the doors and talk to people in neighborhoods to see, because a great indicator for future behavior is your past behavior.
Yeah.
And so we literally do that. We also do a polygraph exam based on a questionnaire that you answer. We ask, when's the last time you smoked weed? When, how many drugs, list And there's a checklist, lists all the drugs you've done. We do a physical and we do a drug test. And so it's a very comprehensive process. And you know, if you were to apply today, it'd probably take a month before you would get hired on, because we do everything. And then the final thing that we do is a psychological exam. And so, and I look at those because it's important to me. You know, I'm looking for biases.
Yeah, the temperament, yes.
Temperament.
Yeah.
All those things are important when you're dealing with people. As we've seen in the past, a lot of these things that are happening across the country, people really don't have the temperament. And everybody who wants to work in law enforcement or corrections shouldn't. And so I'm trying to get and maintain some professionalism. In order to do that, there's certain criteria or characteristics that individuals should have.
Wow. Well, listen, I want to thank the sheriff for coming to talk to us today and sharing with us about the changes that she's made already at the jail, the county jail, and also the $1 million plus that she saved the county taxpayers with her budget. And so great things are happening. Now, if you want to be a part of the Jefferson County Sheriff Department, hey, listen, I've listed a number there where you can call. Again, there are some certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be a part of that. And then those of you who are business owners and corporate people out there who may want to help those who are incarcerated right now, those at the low level with jobs, give the sheriff a call and partner with her in order to help our community become a better place to live. So I want to thank her for coming. I want to thank you for joining us here on What's Happening in our neighborhood. And we will see you next time on our broadcast.